session right now. And today is episode number 65. And we have with us Dr. M. Ravishankar. Sir is my mentor, guru, teacher, well-wisher, whatever you want to call, you can call. Sir was the uh, professor of and HOD of anesthesia JIPMER before he moved on to MGMCRI, where he took over as the HOD of the department and he brought up the department. And then he was the dean of MGMCRI. And currently, after superannuation, sir is working as the director eLearning at Sri Balaji Vidhyapeeth. So he is going to talk to us about a very interesting topic. How can we make our hospitals eco-friendly, and can we make our OTs green? So that is going to be the topic: eco-friendly hospitals and green OTs. So before further ado, I would request Dr. Vishnu Bhatt to welcome the people and introduce the speaker. I also want to place on record that our Dean, Dr. Kotur, is busy with a university NAC meeting, so he wouldn't be attending this session. Over to you, sir. Vishnu Bhatt, sir.
Good afternoon to everybody, and welcome our honored speaker, Dr. Ravishankar, on behalf of our Chancellor, Madam Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, and all authorities of University and AVMC. And Dr. Ravishankar is known to me for many years. He was 2 years senior to me in JIPMER. He completed his MBBS and Diploma in Anesthesiology, MD, all from JIPMER. So totally he was a JIPMERite. Then he joined JIPMER as a resident, became faculty, and he continued and he became the head of the department. He has developed the department, JIPMER, to a great extent. And in 2005, he left JIPMER after taking VRS and joined Mahatma Gandhi University of Medical Research, Balaji Vidhyapeeth, where he headed the Department of Anesthesiology. He introduced several things while in Balaji Vidhyapeeth. He started a fellowship program in critical care medicine. He started the diploma course in critical care and a fellowship program in ultrasound guided anesthesia, local anesthesia. So critical care and minimum monitoring standards, which he developed in JIPMER, probably is continuing in Mahatma Gandhi University. And he was instrumental in starting the competency-based curriculum from 2016 onwards in MGCRI. And he has been a member of several important organizations in India and abroad in relation to anesthesia and ultrasound guided regional anesthesia and various quality control organizations. And he has published several scientific papers, and also he has got lifetime achievement of award twice, one from UK, the group of anesthesiologists from UK in 2007, and the Anesthesia Association in India, I think during their annual conference 2013, again, they gave the Lifetime Achievement Award. He has been an exemplary teacher, and I am sure that some of his students and some of my classmates and well-wishers also will be in the group listening to him from India and abroad. And he is talking on a very important topic. The moment anybody thinks of hospital, nobody wants to build a house near the hospital, because not only because patients are coming there, they will keep throwing here and there without taking more care. So it is very important the hospitals are maintained in an eco-friendly way, not only hygienically, but also eco-friendly. And green OT concept may be a new thing, which we will be listening from him. I'm sure that his talk will go a long way in enlightening our knowledge with regard to eco-friendly hospital and green OTs. So that's all from my side, Dr. Malak.
Thank you very much, sir, for that nice introduction. So we'll move on to the talk now. And before we go, some few housekeeping announcements. I request all participants to keep themselves muted so that the audio quality is good for everyone. And any questions to the speaker can be posted in the chat box. And this program is being streamed live on YouTube. You can see the symbol on the right upper quadrant of your screen. And we are also recording this for future purpose. Over to you, Ravi sir. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt, for that introduction, and Dr. Mahalakshmi for insisting that I should talk in this meeting, and also to Dr. Koto, who initiated this and compelled me to give this talk. I'll just share my screen. I suppose all of you can see.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, why this topic, eco-friendly hospital and concept of green OT? I mean, this is likely to come into many people's mind, but it is a bit of an interest for me as well as concern about how we handle the hospitals and how we handle our hospital waste and how we handle things inside the theater. So I agreed to give a talk on this. Let me go ahead with that short introduction to say why I have taken this particular topic, eco-friendly hospitals and concept of green OT. Now, if you look at that in health sector, the so-called green hospital is a concept that is beginning to redefine how the healthcare facilities are built to protect the environment while saving human lives. I mean, it is the duty of the doctors to see that the facilities are redefined to make sure that we are not harming people because we are working in a hospital. Now, if you look at Government of India, it started award in 2015, and then it expanded it to the urban health facilities in 2017. This is the Kayakalp Award. Objective of this awards came out to inculcate a culture of ongoing assessment and peer review of performance related to hygiene, sanitation, and infection control. Then number two, to incentivize and recognize public health care facilities that show exemplary performance in adhering to the standard protocols of cleanliness, infection control, and sanitation. And thirdly, to create and share sustainable practices related to improving cleanliness in public health facilities. Okay, these are the objectives of this particular program, and I should say that our hospital took part in this particular thing, and then we got scored 90% consecutively for the past 2 years. AIMS Bhubaneswar won the award for the 3 consecutive years, and they have been incentivized with a 2 crore allotment for improving the hospitals. Similarly, I think JIPMER has got a second place last year in this particular award. So these are the points of interest from Government of India point of view. And if you look at the healthcare waste, it is a big problem. Waste that is generated in the hospital are enormous. And they are mainly because the hospitals are high energy intensive. They consume large amount of resources and also produce a huge amount of waste. Okay, this increases as a result of aging. Population is increasing, aging people are coming up, so more and more hospitals are being built, and the convenience of disposable items and everything, each and everything has become a disposable item now. Use once and throw it off, and that is what is creating a lot of problem because of accumulation of medical waste. Now, if you have to give some statistics, resilient hospitals, in one particular study, it was found that they consume 10.6% of energy utilized for commercial purposes. The National Health Services in UK they produce to the tune of 18 million tons of carbon dioxide per annum from the hospitals. And US health sector is the largest consumer of carcinogenic chemicals. All that doesn't talk good about the hospitals. In India, the commercial sector, which includes the healthcare sector, consumes 7.58% of total electricity. So we use a lot of electricity, and we use a lot of gadgets. A lot of things are being used in the hospital. And according to the Central Pollution Control Board of India, the country generates approximately 1.48 million tons of healthcare waste per year. What happens to all this waste? Where does it go? How does it get disposed? All that are big question marks. Just to make a statement, hospitals that heal are also a source of environmental pollution. The amount of energy and water it consumes, imagine running 365 days, about the energy and water that it consumes, and it is let off. The medical waste disposal and lack of regulated compliance is a serious environmental hazard. So these are the concerns as of now. Now, advantage of going green, what is it? It reduces operating cost, conserves water, energy, and other inputs that come at a price. That's most important. You can save money. Healthier atmosphere for the patients, natural light and green around, which are products of horticultural landscape design, which has a therapeutic impact also on the patients. Now, what is the elements of green hospital? See, the thing is, you have to focus on energy conservation, alternate means of energy generation, designing green buildings. Again, it means that energy conservation and then utilization is satisfactory, waste management, and water conservation. So these are the 5 elements that you will have to look into to say that you are turning green. And it is not only just inside the building, we also have to look at the environment in which the hospital is located and in the whole campus to make sure that the carbon dioxide load is minimized to a large extent. And that is also to be looked into. So if you look at it, what we have done in our hospital is convert all the lighting, irrespective of which plate it is, into LED lighting. That means there is a conservation of electricity energy to the extent of about 60 to 70% conservation in lighting. And we have put up solar energy panels to produce electricity, and 30% of the electricity that is consumed by the institute is provided by the solar energy. So that is another one. And trying to produce natural ventilation in all places. Recycling of wastewater after treatment. So that is another big project that has been taken up. And all that water that are treated, wasted from the hospital, are treated and then recycled to the ecosystem. That is, we have almost about 7,000 to 10,000 trees that have been planted all over the thing. And so watering of all these plants, watering of all the greenery that has been developed on the lawns and other things is done with the treated water that has come out. And we also have an agreement with some industries to transport this water for the utilization in the industry for a lot of other purposes. Okay, the food waste, we are segregating that food waste and then using it in the biogas plant so that the kitchen in the hospital is done with that biogas, and all the time it is 24/7, 365 days it is run by that biogas plant. Waste management, that is where the question mark remains. How is that waste management handled? And how is that? So we are losing marks only on that waste management because we are handing over the waste to the government, municipalities, and the way that we hand over, the way they handle it is a big question mark, which is I would say is not very satisfactory. Okay, another point that you'll have to think is improving the air quality is an essential component. That is why I said we have so many trees planted all over the campus. So the amount of carbon dioxide load there in the atmosphere is reduced, and then the oxygen is given back into the atmosphere in the campus totally. And hospitals are again looking how to create designs that allow more daylight exposure and natural ventilation into the environment. So these are the concerns that are there. Now, when you take up a hospital and look at it from which part of the hospital the maximum waste is coming, the operating room is one of the largest users of supplies and within the hospital, as well as one of the largest producers of the waste. So if you look at the case studies that have come out, they have estimated that between 20 to 30% of the total waste generated by the hospital comes from the operating rooms. That is quite a bit of contribution from a very small place, because operation theaters doesn't occupy more than about 5% of the space that the hospital is using, and from there we produce more than 30 to 40% of waste. And this hospital waste, between 75 to 90% of all the hospital waste is wanting me to annotate. If I start annotating, it stops functioning. So I do not know whether I can use it satisfactorily.
So, sir, don't annotate, sir. This may be sometimes somebody who might have clicked the thing.
Okay. So according to the WHO, almost 85% of the hospital waste is non-hazardous. Only 10% is infective, and remaining 5% is non-infective but hazardous. That is what is the estimate from the WHO. Unfortunately, in the operating room, 90% of the general waste is misclassified as clinical and hazardous waste. And then processing this 90% of that waste costs money, and then recycling is not done. So that is where the accumulation of waste goes up, and then the contribution from the OR is quite high. So a number of leading healthcare institutions have begun tackling this problem by identifying a set of best practices that can reduce cost while also reducing waste, energy, and worker and patient exposure to hazardous chemicals. Okay, eco-friendly, green OT, what it should address. And see it, if you look at it, actually it should have a proper regulated medical waste reduction and segregation, and fluid management systems, and single-use device reprocessing, operation room kit reformulation, reusable surgical gowns and basins, then LED lighting and all power booms, displacement ventilation, waste anesthetic gas capture and reclamation, medical plastic recycling, and reusable hard cases for surgical instruments. Now, if you look at this list, you will be surprised. What we were doing about 10 years back is coming back to say this is what we should be doing. And all the while, we have been trying to go away from that practice and get into the all disposable items which the Westerners were using. And then we say we were told that we are backward when we are doing all this. Now, the whole cycle is turning around to say that this is what we should do so that ecology, the whole environment and the ecosystem is maintained, and the amount of waste that we produce is minimized. Okay, green OT concept, what is it? What do you mean by a green OT? This is the first green OT accreditation for hospitals launched in India. It is in December 2014, and it is not just in India. The Green OT certification project is the first in the world certification, and also the first Make in India certification protocol that was developed by Bureau Veritas in conjunction with Abbott India, and with many of the hospital stakeholders like the clinicians, biomedical people, hospital quality assurance, and greenhouse gas surveyors and administrators, etc. So this is what it is, and they have come up with why this is done. It is to say that Green OT certification shall help patients identify the hospitals who have achieved high safety standards inside the OT area. That is what is the thing, inside the OT area. An educated and informed patient group is expected to choose the green OT certified hospitals for the surgeries. So the focus is quite narrow here for that certification, and so that is what it is. So green connotes cleaner techniques using modern technology and processes with sensitive approach to environment. That is what the green means when we talk about green hospital, green OT. Now, we had conducted a survey about 5 years back to find out about awareness among the anesthesiologists to know how well they are informed about all this. So we sent out about 10,000 questionnaires to the people who are qualified anesthesiologists, and then we had about 1,647 respondents. So more than 15% responded. So we think, and the population is quite, if you look at the distribution, it is equally distributed from less than 5 years to more than 15 years. So I think whatever inference that we make from this data is quite valid to interpret it globally, at least in India. Now, how conscious are you about environmental pollution? So to address this question, to this one question was given, does your general anesthetic technique include nitrous oxide? Now you'll find from this graph, you'll find more than 90% of the people use nitrous oxide extensively for all the cases. And what is the significance? Greenhouse gas emission, which is as high as 3% in UK and 10% in US hospitals. And the operating rooms contribute to this disproportionately by release of anesthetic gases into the atmosphere, use of energy intensive medical equipment, air conditioning, special lighting, all that. I mean, imagine this excludes the emission generated indirectly by incineration. There is so much of waste that we produce and it all goes for incineration, and amount of load that is given by incineration and release of methane gas from landfills. These are excluded. Excluding that also, you find so much of contribution from the operating rooms. Yeah, see, green for certification perspective for OTs covers very limited area. That is about anesthesia. It covers the airflow, OT setup, anesthesia machines, type of volatile agents used, filling systems adopted, and the scavenging systems in place. These are the things that is focused on in anesthesia. We'll just go a little bit in detail to know about them. And about the environment, about the airflow system. If you look at the airflow system in the operation theater, it determines and is determined by the OT atmosphere. That is what it is. And you will find the components of this ventilation airflow system is ventilation, filter and particle size is important, flow velocity, and temperature and humidity. The short form HVAC is given to this by the Westerners. H stands for heating. Whereas in our country, we never heat the theater, we have to cool the theater. So it is a cooling system and not the heating system. Of course, ventilation and air conditioning. Air conditioning stands for control of the temperature and humidity, and not the, that is what it is. Now, if you look at it, this is a picture of the theater, and the airflow pattern inside the theater has to be a laminar flow. And plenum ventilation, ultra clean laminar flow is what is expected by the certification agencies. Ultra clean laminar flow, what is it? And the air flow, it has to be 20 to 30 air changes per hour. Only up to 80% of the air should be recirculated and rest should be a fresh air taken in. And inside the theater, positive pressure system should be maintained. 5 to 10 centimeters of water should be maintained. So this plenum laminar flow, what does it mean? The flow comes from one place and it does not produce a turbulence when it is flowing, and then it flows out of the place in a certain direction without creating turbulence. That is what is laminar flow. And most of the theaters utilize laminar flow coming from the top and going on to the sides. Okay, coming next to the particle size, HEPA filters are used in the theaters. and it is to be of the class 100 or ISO 5 grade, and maximum 300 particles of size of 0.3 micron per cubic feet. That is what is the specification. What is this class 100? What is this ISO? I'll just give a table to explain to you. Here, class, when you talk about class, it is about the per cubic feet. That's the particles per cubic feet. Whereas when you talk about ISO, it is per cubic meter. So the number of values will be the multiplication of conversion of feet into cubic meters. And class 1, it is the minimal, and class 100 is recommended for the operation theaters. Class 1000 is recommended for the corridors and other places, and class 10,000 is recommended for other places in the hospital. That is what the class. And similarly, ISO 5, 6, 7 are recommended for the hospital. I told you the HEPA filters. The HEPA filters are positioned right on top, so that there's no obstruction to the airflow, excepting the lighting system that is fixed in the center, and a little bit of arm movement here and there might be there, but predominantly the flow is likely to be straight. The air is pressurized on top. The cooled air is pressurized on top of these filters because they have a very high resistance, and then it is pressurized and then it flows down from the top towards the patient. And then it is returned back. The return air goes from the four corners of the operation theater. So the flow becomes a laminar. It is at the bottom of the theater. It is not at the top. It flows from the top and goes down to the bottom. And most important thing, the airflow velocity. The flow velocity should not be more than 90 to 120 feet. Because if it is more than that, like if you put on a fan and you sit inside, there will be a draught on you, it will be hitting and flowing away from you. That kind of a feeling should not be there when you are inside a laminar flow system. And the flow velocity should be only about 1 foot to 2 feet per second flow. So you just feel that something is flowing, but it doesn't create any turbulence because it is hitting you. So that is what is the recommended airflow velocity. And you are expected to maintain the temperature and humidity. So it is continuously monitored, and then the set temperature is 20 and humidity is 60%. And you can see here in this particular theater, it is maintained between 21, it is temperature, and 54% humidity. Okay, so that's what the specification for the theaters. Most important thing is air handling unit for each of the OTs should be separate. It should be dedicated. It should not be connected to any other place, and there should not be any air returning back to this AHU from some other place. And so that is one of the most important thing. You cannot have one air handling unit for two theaters distributing the air to both the places. It should be dedicated to one. And what do you do during the non-functional hours? Non-functional hours, the AHU blower should be operational round the clock. It should not be switched off. That's the most important thing. But you might cut down, you may not control the temperature, but you might run it. You may not have a 20 to 30 air exchanges. You might reduce it down to 3 to 4 air exchanges per hour, but it should be continuously on so that there is no stagnation of air inside the operation theater. That's the most important thing. But quite often what we find is in all our theaters, when we close, everything is switched off, locked up and gone. So that is not right, because when there is just heating up inside, there will be condensation of water in every place, and then it will promote growth of organism. That is why this is the requirement that AC should not be, the air handling unit should not be put off, and the control can be reduced. So window and split AC should not be used in any type of operation theater because they are completely recirculating units. They don't take up any fresh air from outside, and they have convenient pockets for microbial growth. So you cannot clean them satisfactorily. So it is not recommended. Split AC or window AC is not at all recommended for the operation theaters, and it should not be done. There might be a question now, is there a change in the policy now because of the COVID condition? Yes, there is a change in the policy. What is it now? The airflow, which we say in all theaters, should be positive, and the flow should be from inside out, not from outside in. That's why it should be a positive pressure. And it is to prevent an infection from the people or from the surrounding to the patient. That is what is the idea. But when you operate on COVID patients, now the whole thing has been turned 180 degrees now. Now the flow has to be from inside out. Inside has to be maintained negative. That is what is the recommendation now for operating on COVID patients. Because here, what you are trying to do is not to infect other people who are working in the theater and not to get infected from the patient. So this same laminar flow system is incorporated along with another exhaust system so that, there is the pressure inside the theater is maintained negative, and then the blower capacity has to be increased to match with the exhaust system. So a lot of readjustments have to be done, which most of the places it has not been carried out, but that is what has been recommended as to be done for, say, especially for the COVID OTs, which are designated like that. Coming to the operation theater setup, let's look at the size, walls, floor, doors, and pendants, how it should be. And the specification is that the minimum size of a theater is 6.5 meters into 6.5 meters with a height of about 3.5 meters. And the material that is used in the modular rooms with pendants, it is predominantly stainless steel. What is the advantage of this stainless steel? It is easy to clean and then to maintain. And the initial cost might be high, but the recurring cost will be less. And it's a daily cleaning only needs to be done right of all the places. Predominantly, you have a protocol about how to go about cleaning it. So it is done once in a week when the theater is shut down and the entire cleaning is done. And so it is quite accepted as a material to be used for modular theaters. But what actually is the requirement is a seamless wall with curving. That is, if it is curved and there's no sharp edges, that is what. And if it is painted with antibacterial painting, then it is acceptable for certification. See, like this, the walls, this is a polyurethane foam insulated panel that have been put, and then it has been coated on top with antibacterial paint with absolutely no crevices anywhere, and it is curved all over. So any seamless wall made like this is totally acceptable. Now, if you look at the floor, I mean, the requirement is it should be slip resistant. People should not slip and fall, and it should be strong and impervious. It should not allow fluid to seep inside and then accumulate inside. And the resistance of the flow for conduct of electricity should not be more than 0.5 to 1 ohm. Why is that? Because all of us are using the disposable gowns and other things, which is polyurethane. And then there's always a static electricity that is produced when it rubs against each other. And this electricity should not accumulate, and it should conduct it off when it is in contact with the flow. And that is why the resistance should be low. And this is how the flow is done. And for aesthetic purposes, you might use different colors, but most important thing is it should be vinyl and it is impermeable. Well, if you have a marble or a granite, the marble is especially permeable, and granite is much slippery, so those things are not advocated. What about the doors? Automatic swing doors is what is used in most of the places. Better if there is a sliding door, and a sliding door, especially with the electronic control. So here you can see that there is a hand. If you show the hand, then the sensor takes it up and then opens the door partly for you to go inside. If the door needs to be opened completely, there's a foot switch at the bottom. There's a foot switch at the bottom. Then if you uh, put on that switch, the door opens completely for transport of the patient. Okay, for air conditioning, I have already told you the split air conditioning should not be used. It should be a separate one. Blower should be on during non-functional times, and then temperature must be maintained between 18 to 21 degrees. And the refrigerant that is used should be of the R134A grade so that it does not add up to the load for greenhouse emission gases. Coming to anesthesia machines, what is important about the anesthesia machines? Inside the theater, we do not want the machines to pollute to pollute the atmosphere. So the first and foremost thing is to avoid any leaks in the circuit. You have now this enhanced, advanced workstation that are there, which are quite sophisticated, and then what they do, they do a leak check at the beginning, and then to make sure, say that there's 100 ml per minute, leak is less than 100 ml per minute, so there is it is acceptable. Now other thing is, to reduce the amount of gas that is leaking out, you go for a low flow anesthesia, and you find here the gas that is used is only about 500 ml, 200 ml nitrous oxide, 300 ml of oxygen, and the patient is ventilated with 500 ml of tidal volume with a minute ventilation going up to around 6.6 liters. I mean, this is during the maintenance phase, this is what should be done so that the amount of spillage of gases from the anesthesia machine is minimized. And here the monitors that we use for monitoring the gas concentrations, they do the sampling from the machine, they do the sampling from the patient end, it goes inside. And then what happens after calculating, analyzing all that, the gas flow that is emitted out is taken back and recirculated back into the machine so that it is not spilling over into the atmosphere. So this is one of the advances that have been done, so that even that minimal, about 100 ml of gas that is being taken out for analysis, is not put into the atmosphere, but it is put back into the machine. So in the same survey, we asked about which breathing system do you routinely use. More than 66% people said it is circle, and then 33% said it is a Bain system. Bain is a semi-open circuit, so everything goes out into the atmosphere. Circle, where you are recirculating the whole thing. And then what are the fresh gas flows that are routinely used in the anesthetic practice? Only about 7.5% of people use the flow less than 1 liter, and 92.5% of people use a flow more than 1 liter, and 25% of people use more than 4 liters. What is significant of this? I mean, all these are being wasted gases. These are not utilized for the patient. These are wasted gases, and they go into the atmosphere and they add up to the greenhouse emissions. Okay, so that is one. And what about when you're doing that? How you can conserve? Here we are absorbing the carbon dioxide by using carbon dioxide absorbers so that carbon dioxide is not emitted out. And then at the end of the case, many machines now are coming up with the agent absorbent with the activated charcoal filters. They absorb the agent before the gas is sent out into the atmosphere. So the agent also is trapped inside those filters, and those filters can be reactivated at a later place. So that is what is happening now. And going one step further, they don't want even the agents to spill out when they are filling up the vaporizers. So they have come out with the locks and the nozzles. The nozzle is there in the bottle, and then you have the lock. So you just have to click it on and rotate it so that the agent is filled into the vaporizer, and absolutely there is no leak. And then you just turn it and turn it back. Then the bottle comes out, and there is absolutely no leak in the system. That is how the thing has been advanced. Again, whatever gas that is spilling out in the OT atmosphere is better to scavenge them out. So the machines that are there are using this scavenging port so that whatever is coming out in the breathing system, they get accumulated, and finally they go out. This is active scavenging, so that there's a little bit of suction power applied to this, and whatever gas that spills out is sucked out and then put into the atmosphere at a higher level so that it does not pollute the operation theater. But whatever is coming out there is definitely going into the atmosphere. And we tried to find out, does your hospital have a scavenging system for waste gases? Only about 15% of the people said yes, we have a scavenging system, and 85% have no scavenging system. That means whatever is spilling out into the operation theater, inside the theater, and then it is going to affect the people who are working in the theater not necessarily the patient. Okay, those are the specifications for the theater, inside the theater, how it has to be. And what about the surgeon side? That is anesthetist side. On the surgical side, what we have is this. Yes, we have to focus on the infection control, and we have to focus on the waste generation and disposal. That is so. So infection control is protocol driven, and most hospitals have a protocol. And it is said that a prophylactic antibiotic, a single dose before surgery, and then no more antibiotics to the patient. That's the protocol that is being followed. And in the theater, you use a no-touch technique, and the sterilization is done. And you use disposable gown and drapes. Most important thing is, are we reducing the waste? If you're looking at that, are we reducing the waste? Actually, we are increasing the amount of waste that is being generated by doing all this. This is a study that is done in 2018, where they've compared the 3 time periods, 11, 15, and 17, and they found that general waste is remaining and recyclable waste is there, but it is not being satisfactorily recycled. The amount of recycling that can be done is about 25%, but it is not satisfactorily recycled. It is also treated as a clinical waste. Now, what is the composition of the waste? It is predominantly paper, cardboard, metal, glass, linen, several types of plastic, sharps, anesthetic gas, medications, anatomical or pathological waste. This anatomical or pathological waste is only about 5% as per the WHO estimations, and it's very minimal. And then here in this study in 1997, they found 33 to be general waste is plastic and 66% is paper, because during that time, all the wrappings, everything they used paper. It is a paper wrapping which is done for ETO sterilization, comes back, and then the paper is taken and thrown off, and whatever is inside is used. So everything, predominantly 90% of packaging is done by the paper. That is why 66% is paper. But now in the study done in 2010, picture is totally different. It is 39% is disposable linens, 7% is paper, 26% is plastic, and 27% is miscellaneous. At one hospital, the blue sterile wrap, that is what is used commonly for wrapping up everything, and it is taken off and then thrown off, and it makes up to 19% of all surgical waste. Main thing is this is not infected, it is not exposed to anything. This has been used only for wrapping things, and it is taken out when it comes to the theater, but it is discarded as a medical waste, clinical waste, and then goes for incineration without any concern. That is what is the point that people are trying to make. And if you look at the plastics, so whatever thing that you are using will have a symbol like this to say what kind of material is there in this particular plastic, and these symbols are recyclable. Right? Here, this is polypropylene is 21%, and polyethylene is 40%, and polyvinyl chloride 20. Almost about 85% of plastic that are being used in the operation theater are recyclable, and we do not bother about it. Everything goes as a medical waste and then goes for incineration or treatment. So these are the concern. Environmental sterility, if you look at it, how do we maintain the theaters? By fogging. What is the solution that we use for fogging? Is it aldehyde free? What are the corrosives and effects on the equipment? We are not bothering about this. We are not even taking care that it is aldehyde free. So that is why you find in that study that I quoted, American hospitals use it is maximum amount of carcinogenic chemicals are used in the American hospitals, mainly for cleaning purposes. Now, this is one of the summary that has come out in that article, which says that what action can be taken to minimize the effects. See here, this is by the anesthetic has to be done. Sevoflurane, desflurane, nitrous oxide. They contribute to greenhouse. It can be minimized by using a low flow and minimizing the amount of gas that is going out. Polyethylene hospital install gas sequestrating systems so that gas emissions can be. And surgeons prefer reusable surgical gowns and drapes. So if they start reusing the surgical gowns and drapes, then the totally all this, the hospital gown, linen, drapes, all this thing can be minimized to a large extent, because this constitutes almost about 30% of the waste that is being sent for segregation. And the metals and other things, the glass ampoules, and I think these can be recycled. So that's what the point is. And waste management. I mean, this is what we keep. Is this first thing is this appropriate for the operation theater? Because the amount of waste that we get in the operation theater is so enormous, we just cannot put them inside this bin. And so what happens is the segregation of the waste into different categories does not happen, and everything gets together, compiled together, and then sent out as a clinical waste, which is infectious or hazardous. It goes out like that. That is what contributes to the maximum amount of waste that is coming out from the operation theater. And if you have this glass hub cutters and then glass cutter, this is for the metal and this is for the sharp disposal, and then the glass pieces. So these can be recycled. If you can have a MOU with some of the companies, the glass companies, I mean, they can be sent back to them for recycling, so that the amount of glass waste and then the sharps can be recycled for reprocessing. Now, this is to say that International Committee of Red Cross in 2011 came out with what material, what are the advantage of these different types of disposal. Incineration, they said, is it releases hydrochloric acid, dioxins, furans, and various other chemicals into the atmosphere, especially at 800 degrees. And if it is less than that, it is incomplete sterilization if it is done between 300 to 400 degrees. So this is one of the advantages. The waste is completely destroyed at 1100. And so this is one of the methods that are being used extensively, but contributing to a lot of these things when we do that. Autoclave, yes, it is environmental safely, low cost operating, but unsuitable for chemicals and pharmaceuticals. Waste volume is not reduced, but it can be recycled. Chemical disinfectants, it is hazardous to the healthcare workers, risk for environmental pollution. The waste volume again is not reduced. Then encapsulation is small, inexpensive, regarded as temporary small quantity. So weight volume is not decreased at all. So that is what it is. So if we get back into what we started with, what should the eco-friendly hospital or green OT should focus on? All these points we have just seen how regulated medical waste reduction segregation is not satisfactorily happening. Fluid management system, that is whatever that is being sucked out to the blood or the body fluid, whatever is sucked out, how is that disposed of without any biohazard? And that is not very clear. Single-use device reprocessing does not happen and is not permitted by law also in some places. And so that needs to be looked into, what kind of devices can be reprocessed and what should not be. And work it reformulation, which means that when you go and open a tray for a particular surgery, you don't open just one, you open about 2 or 3 trays, because you might need one equipment from there, one instrument from here. So about 3 or 4 trays are open for one surgery. And then whatever is the wrapping cover, everything is thrown off. And then it is in Western countries, the whole thing is plastic, and then the whole instruments are also single-use instruments. They are also thrown off as waste. So that is how it goes, and that is what accumulates to produce such a huge amount of waste that is produced in the operation theater. Of course, LED lighting and power booms can be used. Displacement ventilation can be done. Waste anesthetic gases capture and reclamation can be done. Some places it is being done, and medical plastic recycling is another thing you have to concentrate on. Reusable hard cases for surgical instruments. Yes, in India we are using that. We are doing the stainless steel trays for these, and then we are, of course, we are using reusable instruments. We are not throwing them off. So it is better to look at all this and not go towards the West saying that I should use disposable things everywhere. See, the thing is, the staples is quite easy to put, so you get the staples and put it and throw it off for closure of the abdomen. When we were using cotton with a needle and then stitching up the skin, and then it is a biodegradable waste. I mean, there's nothing accumulated in that as a waste. So these are the things that people have to pay attention to and concentrate on. Actually, the certification of Green OT audit focuses only on prevention of surgical site infection, safe anesthesia, safe surgical teams and equipment, and a measurement of quality assurance mechanism. And more emphasis is given to airflows, OT setup, anesthesia machines, scavenging systems in place. But in my mind, the focus has to change. The focus should be on the reduction and appropriate segregation, reuse, recycle, and rethink as strategies to achieve environmental friendly goals. I mean, these are my thoughts, and so I thought I will share it with you. And that is why I have accepted the invitation from Dr. Kotu and Dr. Mahalakshmi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was very nice. Reduce, recycle, retrain your people to use it in a different way.
Yeah.
But there is one question which has come from Vishnu Bhatt, sir.
Yeah.
Disposable hospital items have been come into use mainly because they reduce the cross infection between patients. If we go back to reusable items, will it not increase the risk of infection? I think you must be answering this question quite often whenever you talk on that. But, that's the question.
Yeah, I've stopped sharing. Now it is the most important. You see, the thing is, you will have to look at the cost effectiveness. If you have to do a recycling satisfactorily and reuse, then you will have to employ more number of people. You will have to employ more number of place for recycling satisfactorily, and then certification of that so that it does not produce a cross infection. That is, and we have been doing that before satisfactorily, but because somebody started saying that no, this is not good, it is likely to produce. Because one of the things is, it is not infection, it is the proteins that get deposited on the instrument that cannot be cleaned up satisfactorily, that can produce reactions in the other patients. So that is, again, it has to be analyzed, it has to be looked into, but this is the direction that you will have to take to see that the hospitals are becoming eco-friendly, and that is what it is. Because amount of waste that is going out from the hospitals, and after some time we will have only the waste and waste in the house, in the whole world, and nothing else. Everything is used for landfilling, everything is plastic, and you incinerate and then produce so much of gases, and that is not what we are expected to do as human beings for living in this planet. What are we doing for the future? In that line we'll have to think.
Sustainability is what we are looking at, sir.
Yeah, we'll have to live. Generations have to live in this planet. Cannot be saying that I'll go to the Mars and live.
Yeah, I was when you gave this topic, I was looking at this thing. I found one very nice article by Ann Arbor Medical School, University of Michigan. The harm we do, the environmental impact of medicine. I think that's the article in 2017 they have put, and they had discussed about the negative impact of healthcare waste in the community, like what Dr. Vishnu Bhatt started. No? People don't want to buy property near that, and properties near hospitals cost has come down mainly because of that. That is what. There is a move towards accreditation of green OTs. No, sir? Is this a push from the accreditation side which is pushing the green OT concept, or it is the realization from the OT side which is taking this forward? Is it top down or bottom up? Sir? What is going this?
It is top down because this movement started in 2000 all over the world to see that we change. And then one of the things in 2007, 2015, I think it is, and they made a thing that we have to focus on the operation theaters. That is how. And India took the step forward because of Modi, I think. And then they created the protocol for checking and accreditation, which helped by the US agencies who are there in that line. And so 2014, they made the protocol and started doing this. But if you look at the number of hospitals that have been accredited for green OT, are quite minimal, because when it started, there was a push, and then everybody wanted to do that. And finally, they found that is it worth it? Because you are getting it accredited for a small number of people who recognize that this is a safe OT where I can go and get operated. I mean, that population is a very small population. And then when you go so stringent about a lot of things, then which cannot be done, because if it should be looking at everything has to be disposable, then you are pushing it onto the other side. So those kind of things. So of late, I don't find anybody actively taking part in that accreditation, though NABH has now said that we have to look at this VNOT certification as well as one of the components.
As I said in the beginning, like before we started, there's a question from Dr. Mohandas. I'm not very sure if he's here. He's consultant anesthetist based in Kuala Lumpur. He wants to know your views on laminar flow in OT ventilation.
Yeah, Dr. Mohandas. Okay, fine. He was from JIPMA, and he is a cardiac anesthetist in Kuala Lumpur, and he also has retired. Now, laminar flow, he said this is the kind of laminar flow that what is they're looking at for certification. But if laminar flow, when it came inside, it used to be from the side and going on to the other side, not from the top, from one wall of the operation theater going on to the other wall of the operation theater, going across. And then they found that it is quite uncomfortable for the surgeons who are there, who are facing that. And that's why it has been changed now to come from top to bottom. And the airflow also, velocity also should not be more than 90 to 120 feet per minute. That is the specification now. Yes, every OT now, when they put up a HEPA filters and a ventilation system like this, is using a laminar flow.
Okay. There's one question from our environmental science person. Can you explain what is the change in OT protocol during COVID?
Change
Has
in
there been any change in protocols?
Yeah, I think I touched on that change in protocol for inside the theater. Yeah, it has to be a negative pressure OT, not a positive pressure OT. So, but maintaining a negative pressure OT, you have to build it separately, and unless you can't modify the existing operation theaters to suit that purpose, it has to be separately done, and there has to be enhancement of the capacity of the air handling units to compensate, because initially we were saying it's only about 20% fresh air. But when you say it has to be maintained as a negative pressure and then no recirculation, it has to be 100% and 100% air exchange, and it has to be 20 to 30 air exchanges per hour. They have come down on that air exchanges to around 8 to 10 air exchanges, but negative pressure should be maintained, and then the flow that is going out should be sterilized before it is let out into the atmosphere, which means on the flow out ducts it has to be UV sterilized so that the gases pass through, the air passes through the UV light, and then it is bubbled through the water and then let out into the atmosphere. These are the specifications that have come inside for modification.
So all this mucormycosis and all being operated upon, we need to have this kind of setups.
Not for mucormycosis. It is so it is only for COVID, which they say it is spread by aerosol. That is the main concern, not for mucor.
The other question which is there in the chat box is, you spoke about eco-friendly hospitals, and one of the things you were talking about is the LED lights and water conservation. So again, there is a question from Butser that should we insist on rainwater harvesting in addition to recycling to conserve water shortage in the
Yes, definitely. Whichever way you can conserve the water, action should be done. Rainwater harvesting is one of the things that should be done. That is, my main thing is a few places may not allow that kind of a harvesting, depending on the soil and other things that are there. But definitely recycling is a possibility, and I know that Madura refineries do the recycling of water after processing, and it is used for irrigation, and it is the source of irrigation all over that place. They maintain the tanks, and then they show it is quite a pure water, and then it is drinkable. That is how they show. Then the neighborly again is pumping out water, so much of water which is pumped out for taking out that coal and other things, and that water is being reused. I mean, so predominantly for irrigation. So
Sir, you showed that survey question. No? So how many people are using nitric oxide? Almost
nitrous
80, 85 nitrous oxide. 85% people are still using. No, sir.
yes.
Is it economically viable for or sustainable for hospitals to do away with nitric oxide, sir? Nitrous oxide during gaseous anesthesia?
No,
Because
people are coming.
sevoflurane also you said is a dangerous gas. Desflurane also was there in your list.
No, the quantity that comes out when desflurane and sevoflurane is minimal, and it is possible to trap them up in the activated charcoal filters and not let out into the atmosphere. But nitrous oxide, the quantities we use about 60 to 70% nitrous oxide composition, and that goes into the atmosphere. That is where it constitutes the maximum load. And few centers have definitely changed over to air and oxygen and totally stopped using nitrous oxide. But the amount of advantage that you have while using nitrous oxide is outweighing that losses because the expense wise as well as the smoothness and other things, people slowly coming back to say that we will use nitrous oxide but we will not throw it out into the atmosphere. That is why the low flow system, and minimize the amount of nitrous oxide, use it only to the level that the patient needs it and not indiscriminately use it and push it into the atmosphere.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions in the chat box. You said two hospitals. This Bhubaneswar AIIMS has got that best hospital award in the scheme. Is there any smaller hospital which has, of, sir, which has implemented this green OT concept and they have shown sustainability?
See, Green OT Hospital, Chennai, the 2, 3 hospitals are there. That is SIMS Hospital in Chennai. And then even the Apollo has got the certification. And so Green OT recently, some other hospital in Chennai which started now, they also got the Green OT certification. But it is only a very small part. And that is the main thing. And unless the focus is changed to whatever I talked about reuse and and recycling, and reduce the amount of waste that is going out from the hospital, then it is not a good idea. That is what I feel.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Bhatt, any feedback, questions,
it was a good
comments?
and interesting talk. And of course, I was aware that infection control is important in the OTs, but I did not realize anesthetic agents can get leaked and may affect the individuals.
அரவிந்த் நாளைக்கு எதுவும் டீச்சர்ஸ் டே கொண்டாட்டம் ஏதாவது இருக்கா? எதுவும் இல்லைல்ல?
Somebody's talking.
Yeah, sir.
நாளைக்கு எப்படா ஓட்டுறது?
Javid, mute yourself, please. Yes, sir.
So this was a new thing for me, that anesthesia gases can leak and create problem to the individuals.
No, it is not anesthesia gas is leaking. It is deliberately let out. So it is being used for the patient and it has to go out. So it goes out. It is not leaking. We are saying
leaking. I meant that way only. Leaking into the operation.
It is going into the atmosphere all these years. When I was a student, when I was practicing, all these years I've been inhaling what I am giving to the patient to a large extent. Yeah.
So it was a good talk on
How to enhance natural lighting.
I was thinking, what is this green OT? I was not very clear.
Okay, sir. One last question in the chat box. Can I take it?
Yeah.
This is again from Dr. Anand Babu. How to enhance natural lighting in the hospitals to reduce the use of electricity?
See, everybody thinks about air conditioning and this and that, want to close up all the windows and every entry that is there. And actually, a hospital should be the one which gets good, proper ventilation with the natural air. That is how it should be. And if your construction is such that, like a sanatorium, you go to a sanatorium, you see how it is. It's a natural light and natural ventilation that is there. The hospital should be built like that, but unfortunately, the hospitals which were built like that were also getting closed and then it becomes a closed system. I mean, so that's why I said we have to rethink about how you can make it satisfactory so that there is a natural light and natural ventilation is there. Now for this talk, I have to close all my doors and put on the AC and sit so that there is no disturbance. See, that is an artificial thing. No? If I keep the door open, there is going to be external noise and then there is going to be disturbance. See, there are things like that.
Okay. Sir, one more question is there. What is the cost of setting up this in a small scale? I think that's what.
Small scale, setting
Hmm.
up green OT. Yeah, if I see each OT will cost you anything near about 80 to 90 lakhs. That is will be the cost of the setting up the OT.
That is small scale. Okay.
Small scale, yeah. Because really, the theater setup, see, it is not just the walls and then the things as a theater. The modular theater itself will cost you around 30 lakhs, and with the doors and other things, then you need to have the air conditioning system and then airflow system, HEPA filters, anesthesia machines, and all other things added on to that, and the disposal. So that way, when you look at it, it will cost you to that extent.
Okay. So that was from Dr. Suresh Rajkumar, sir, anesthetist. I think we have come to the end of questions, and I should thank Ravi sir for a very interesting and entertaining thing. No, he had brought in the element of sustainability and change management in the way we think about the planet also for the future generations. We can't just use and leave it off. So there's a lot of ideas for us to take it, but it's nice to think about all these things. But how to do it in everyday practice, the translation is where I think we have issues with that. Uh, on that note, I would like to thank Dr. Ravishankar for an excellent and interesting talk uh, on behalf of the Scientific Forum. Sir.
Thank you.
And announcement for the next week. 10th of September is Ganesh Chaturthi, so no FFF on that day. So we will meet again on 17th of September, and we have another interesting talk that is we'll be pursuing how evidence is going to influence practice, and we have somebody from ESI Medical College and Postgraduate Institute Chennai, Dr. Vijay. He will be talking to us about how qualitative evidence can help to influence policy decisions. So that is the talk for 17th of September. 10th of September is a holiday. So we'll again meet you on 17th. And till then, it is bye-bye from us from the Scientific Forum. Stay safe and we'll meet you all then. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Hi, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.